have right here is a $190 mystery spec PC. This computer is being advertised as just a Windows 8 computer, and the only specifications I knew from it were the CPU and the storage, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I basically won this at an auction for $190, and I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know what the graphics card was, I didn't know what the motherboard, the cooler, power supply, I didn't really know what any of it really was. So this PC inside of it has an i7-3770K on a Corsair. I believe this is an H60, which still works great, by the way. We also have 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM and 2 8 gig sticks. We have two 500 gig hard drives and a 120 gig SSD for the boot. We have a GTX 660, which is that's okay. It's good for playing games like Fortnite, Valorant, CSGO, but if you try to play anything more intensive than that, this 660 will definitely struggle. And I think this is definitely the limiting part of this system, because the 3770K is still a very good CPU and can probably handle up to something like a 1050 Ti perfectly fine. So we may end up switching this 660 out in the future. Power supply here is another thing that we're probably going to switch out. This is an Allied 500 watt power supply. As you can see by the incredible cable management done by iPi Power, that it has a lot of ketchup and mustard. So I will be definitely switching out this power supply with something else. However, for now, we're just going to leave this computer in its stock configuration. We're going to see how well a mystery spec $190 PC performs in 2021. And then after I show you those benchmarks, we're going to talk about what's going to be upgraded in this system, because if you look at it now, it looks like a normal 2012 iPi Power PC. However, with some simple upgrades, we can actually modernize this PC and make it a modern gaming PC that someone will love. So without further ado, I'm now going to show you how well this 3770K and this GTX 660 still perform in 2021. Alright guys, first game up is Fortnite Battle Royale, and I am recording this gameplay using an external capture card, so there won't be any performance penalty because of the recording. Also, my capture card only records at 30 FPS, so that's why the gameplay might seem a little stuttery. Anyways, at 1080p Pro settings with the epic view distance and low for everything else, we're getting around 100 to 120 FPS. This is definitely very playable, and you could technically play competitive on a GTX 660. So I decided to step things up to medium to see how it would perform, and at 1080p medium it gets around 60 to 70 FPS. If you're just playing casually and not doing like in a competition, then this honestly is perfectly fine for playing Fortnite, and I feel like that playing this game at medium settings is definitely the sweet spot between the graphic quality and the frame rate. Next up is CSGO, and this one was an interesting one. So at 1080p low, we were able to get well over 150 FPS most of the game. However, whenever there are multiple players on screen, the game starts to stutter and dips below 60 FPS. And if we look in the top left corner, we see that seems to be caused by the GPU. I guess this GTX 660 just has a hard time rendering players for whatever reason. So I definitely wouldn't say that this game would be playable on a 660 because the game starts to stutter if there's more than like 2 players on screen. Next up is GTA 5, and at 1080p normal settings and using the built-in benchmark, we were getting right around 60 FPS. This could be because I accidentally left VSync on without noticing, but at least the GTX 660 and 3770K combo here can achieve 60 FPS in GTA at decent settings. Next up, a more CPU intensive game, Minecraft. Although saying that Minecraft is a pretty intensive game is pretty hilarious. But at 1080p with the fancy graphics and 12 chunk render distance, we were able to get well over 100 FPS for pretty much all of the entire game. Definitely perfectly playable on a machine like this. Next game is Rainbow Six Siege, and at 1080p medium settings we were getting around 60 to 70 FPS using the built-in benchmark. And if you're looking at the top left, you can see that the GTX 660 is being maxed out, while the 3770K is just kind of chilling. This definitely shows that GTX 660 will need to be upgraded if we want to play more demanding games. Finally, for all you nerds out there who like to read numbers on a screen, in Cinebench R15 got a score of 638, which puts it right around the same performance as a first-gen Ryzen 5. And finally, in 3D Mark Time Spy, we got a score of 1,488. Now, I'm no genius, but I'm pretty sure that's a bad score. So as you guys saw from the benchmarks, this PC can play esports games pretty well actually, despite the fact that it is basically 8-9 years old. Games like Fortnite and Minecraft and GTA run in the system pretty well, and you could probably also run games like Valorant, Apex Legends, or any other esports games perfectly fine in this PC. However, the bottleneck is definitely this GTX 660. In almost all games, the 660 is pegged at 100%, while the CPU usually hangs around 40 to 50%. So that is definitely the first thing that is going to be upgraded in this PC. And in a follow-up video, I'm going to show you guys how to take a PC that looks like it came from a Best Buy in 2011 and transform it into a modern-looking gaming PC. And we're also going to do some upgrades to the hardware to make it perform like a modern gaming PC. So the first thing definitely going to get upgraded is this GPU. The 660 it just ain't gonna cut it, and you can get around $100 for one of these on eBay. So if I sell this and say get a $150 GPU, then I technically would have only paid $50 to upgrade the GPU. Another thing we're going to be upgrading is this case, the NZXT Phantom 410. It's definitely a bit dated looking, and even though it has a pretty cool looking side panel here, it's pretty sick. I'm going to upgrade the case to something that has a clear side panel and maybe some LED fans if I want to get fancy. Final thing I'm probably going to upgrade in this PC is the power supply. I switched out for something maybe like an EVGA or Corsair power supply because I'm not sure if I would trust this power supply with a more powerful GPU than a GTX 660. But the cooler can stay, the CPU can stay, the 16 gigs of RAM can definitely stay. That's very nice. And the storage can actually stay. And fun fact about the storage, this originally came with a single 1 terabyte hard drive instead of two 500 gig hard drives, but I took out the hard drive to put in something else. But I ran Crystal Disk Info on the hard drive and it had like almost no hours, so I guess this thing was never actually used, which makes sense because when I got it there was basically no dust inside of here, and the place I buy these from usually don't clean them. So that is a quick look at a $190 mystery spec PC that I bought online, and surprisingly it's still good at playing esports games. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're going to be doing a follow-up video where I show you guys how to basically transform your old gaming PC to look like and perform like a modern one. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and look forward to the follow-up video that will be coming in the next week or two.